In today's video, I'm going to restore this incredibly beat up pair of Cordovan Carmina boots.
I'm Kirby Allison, and I love helping the well-dressed acquire and care for their wardrobes. Join me as we explore the world of quality, craftsmanship, and tradition.
Over the holidays, I was in New York with my son Nathaniel, and this is the pair of boots that I wore with me. It was a total downpour in New York, and these boots received an exceptional amount of abuse. You can see that they've got some salt stains here around the edge. They're incredibly beat up and scuffed, and I have to say it's almost embarrassing just how bad these boots look. So in today's shoe care video, we're going to totally bring this pair of Carmina Cordovan boots back to life. First, I'm going to use the Saphir Hiver-Winter, which is a salt stain remover, to remove these salt stains kind of in around the bottom near the welt and then across the vamp. Now you'll want to use this in several applications. Each progressive application is going to take a little bit more of that salt out of the leather. And you really want to pay close attention to where the upper meets the welt, since that is the part of the shoe that gets the most exposure to water and salt whenever you're walking. Then you can see these boots are really dirty. So next I'm going to shampoo these shoes using the leather cleaning soap. I prefer the Saphir leather cleaning soap over the Saphir saddle soap because it is more gentle and less dehydrating on the leather. I'm doing this in the warehouse, but if you're at home, this could easily be done in your kitchen sink. I'm using an extra large cleaning Dauber, which is perfect for shampooing shoes. It's actually the reason we had this Dauber made. Just shampoo it lightly, and then as soon as you really work up a nice lather, rinse all of the suds off using water, and then pat the shoes dry. You can see that the leather really is quite dry, and that's what happens whenever you shampoo because it's pulling all those waxes off of that leather. I'm going to allow these shoes more time to dry before we continue with this shine, but I'm just going to buff them real quick just to get anything off. There were some suds kind of stuck in some of the broguing, and so I'm just going to tap that with my brush to get those suds out. You want the skin to be completely dry before you apply any polish. If the skin is in any way wet or damp, it's not going to absorb that nutrients like you want it to. So we'll give this a little bit of time and then we'll come back. Now that the Cordovan has been given time to dry, the next thing that we're going to do is start to reestablish the hydration of the leather by conditioning it with the Saphir Renovateur. So I'm going to use just one of our Wellington chamois for this. This is a 10-ounce cotton chamois. It's a plush chamois that is really great for the application of conditioners and cream polishes. I'm going to apply this using medium to firm pressure and small circular movements. As we're rebuilding the finish on this Cordovan leather after having shampooed it using the Saphir leather cleaning soap, we've removed all those waxes, and it's important to feed and to recondition that Cordovan in addition to building that foundation of wax polishes. I want to be careful not to get that Renovateur onto the upper, but I'm applying medium to firm pressure and really working this in. The whole goal is to massage this into the leather. And in order to do that, you really do have to apply pressure. But Cordovan, again, is a very unique material. It's not an actual leather, it's a membrane. It comes from underneath the skin on the hindquarters of a horse. And so it's a very thick, very durable material, but it's prone to these kind of rolling creases that you see right here. Those can be very easily pressed out using the deer bone. I'm going to do this actually with the Renovateur still on the shoes just to help kind of lubricate that deer bone to prevent it from scratching the leather. The natural oils in the deer bone also help it really nourish and hydrate that leather without scratching it. Essentially what you're doing here is you're kind of ironing or pressing that material flat. Now, if you wanted to, you could even take a hair dryer to the Cordovan a little bit to warm it up. That'll kind of soften it a little bit and allow this to be even more effective. It looks like you're destroying the leather, but again, as a testament to just how durable Cordovan is, just a little bit of buffing, you can see that almost buffs totally back to normal. So look at these boots. Just after a few applications of the Renovateur cleaner and conditioner, you can really see the balance of this leather being restored. But really the job with Cordovan is not done until you use a proper Cordovan cream polish. I'm going to apply this the same way using my cotton chamois. And again, we've got two chamois that we really sell here at Kirby Allison. And one of them is the high shine chamois, which is great for wax polishes. But when applying a cream or any type of conditioner, my favorite is our Wellington 8.5 to 10 ounce cotton chamois. I'm going to just kind of tap it around the upper. And then you really want to work this into the leather using medium to firm pressure. Massage it in. The more time that you can allow this to dry on the leather, if you can leave it overnight, the better, because it's just going to allow this Cordovan more time to really drink up those hydrating characteristics in this polish. The other thing I like about the Saphir Cordovan polish, of course, is that it's pigmented, so it's available in different colors. And that's really important because at a certain point, you always need to reintroduce pigment into the leather to help even out the finish and any scuffing that the leather may encourage just during normal use. And so with a nice pigmented cream polish like what you get through Saphir, you can really totally restore the finish. And now that I'm done with the application of this first boot, I'm going to set this aside, allow the Cordovan to really absorb all that polish, all those nutritions, and then I'm going to apply a first coat to the second boot. When it comes to Cordovan, buff, 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 and buff. So it really looks nice. Now, the next most important thing, especially for a well-worn pair of shoes, is to give the edges and the heels a little bit of attention. As you can see, these are really rough and kind of discolored. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a little bit of low grit sandpaper. You can really see it right here, that discoloration and just the unevenness to the touch. So I'm going to use a little bit. This is 240 grit sandpaper, quite rough. I'm going to tear off a little segment of this, and then I'm simply going to sand those edges smooth. Now I'll take off a little bit of the finish whenever I do this, but I'm going to come back on top of it with the leather dye, and that'll help us kind of restore and reestablish the smoothness of that finish. Now shoemakers actually do this with glass, so I suppose if you're really hardcore and wanted to break a window pane, you could do this with some glass just like a bespoke shoemaker. But low grit sandpaper, and you really want a low grit sandpaper because the leather's quite rough, and will help kind of smooth this out. So it's best if you don't save the edges and heels for the last thing you do, which is how I used to do it. I think it's actually better to do it either before you begin to polish or as an intermediate step, because that way you can always come back on top of the upper with another layer of the Cordovan cream polish or the wax polishes to elevate that shine. So here you can see I'm doing it before I'm done. The edges are smooth to the touch, and that's really kind of what I'm looking for. You know, I'm pulling any previous applications of wax off. That'll help the leather of the edges to really take the dye. So next what I'm going to use is a little bit of Teinture Francaise. This is an alcohol-based leather dye that Saphir sells. That's fantastic for edges. Now you don't have to use it every single time. Oftentimes you can get away with just a little bit of cream polish and some mirror gloss. But because I've sanded the edges, I want to make sure that I fully resaturate the finish before I come on top of it with some cream polish. So I'm going to use the alcohol-based leather dye. Now this is the number 35, it's the Havana brown. It's a little bit more transparent than the dark brown, which for this pair of Cordovan boots, I really want a slightly more transparent edge than with a dark brown or a black. So I find that the Havana brown is really a beautiful color. This comes in a small plastic bottle. Got to be very careful with this because it is permanent, with a small little applicator brush, and really is quite easy to use. So you want to be very careful in your application of this to make sure that they're just on the edge of the shoe. If you dye the edge with this, you really need to, one, probably do multiple applications, and then come back on top of it with some of the Pomander cream polish and the mirror gloss, which is my favorite of the products for edges to give it that high gloss shine. But the beauty of this is that it fully saturates that leather and helps kind of even out that finish. So those edges are at least re-dyed. Okay, so next we're gonna add a little bit of pomander cream polish. Now let's go ahead and try the Havana brown, the tobacco brown, to see how that works out. I like to just simply apply it with my fingers. I find that you have more control, and I'm just gonna really work that into the edge. Now, had I not sanded this, I probably wouldn't have used any of the alcohol-based leather dye. I would have just gone straight to the cream polish. As you can see right here, in some ways it has a more kind of opaque pigment than the leather dye itself. I mean, look at just how that has great coverage. After you apply the Saphir Pomander cream polish as an edge dressing, the next thing you want to do is take out a pig bristle brush and buff it. Really, the stiffer the bristle, the better of a buff you're going to get, especially on something like an edge or a heel. But if all you have is a horsehair brush, that'll work also. I've even heard of people doing this with something as soft as a goat hair brush, which is an incredibly soft bristle. But you can see just one application of the Pomander cream polish, and we're getting a nice soft shine on this. Now I'm gonna add one coat of the mirror gloss after this to elevate it a little bit higher, but you don't have to go crazy on your edges and heels. As long as it's a nice even finish with a soft shine, you're good. Okay, so I think these edges have really come up quite nicely. I mean, nice soft shine, nothing extravagant. I mean, if this were a black Cap to Oxford, I could add even more layers of mirror gloss to really bring up the shine here on the edges and heels. But I think for this pair of Cordovan shoes, I think a nice kind of soft shine is really quite elegant. One of the reasons I like to do the edges and heels before finishing the uppers is that you can see as you're buffing the edges and heels to a shine, it's really difficult to not disturb the finish of the upper themselves. So I think edges and heels are best done after conditioning but before polishing. And so I think it looks really nice. So next what we're gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and add one more coat of the Cordovan cream polish to this shoe, and then we're gonna work with some waxes to begin elevating the shine. So you can see with the few applications of just the Cordovan cream polish, we've been able to re-even out that finish and restore a lot of the health of the Cordovan itself. Now that said, one of the things that I think really helps take Cordovan the extra mile is further elevating the shine on the caps. And I'm gonna do that using a combination of the Saphir Mirror Gloss in burgundy and a little bit of Pate Deluxe in burgundy also. I love the smell of a fresh tin of Saphir. So I'm using our Wellington High Shine Chamois. This is really high quality cotton shirting. Here is the burgundy Pate Deluxe. So here we're building that foundation of hard waxes, and it's done through several progressive applications of Pate Deluxe or Mirror Gloss into the actual Cordovan. So you want to apply really no fewer than 10 to 12 different applications of the Mirror Gloss, because again what you want is that accumulation of hard waxes to build that foundation that you can then shine. What I'm doing here is I'm alternating between shoes because I want to allow the Mirror Gloss a little bit of time to dry. You need those solvents to have time to evaporate, and what that does is that allows those hard waxes to really dry and set. If you are too quick between your applications, what will end up happening is those solvents will essentially melt or soften the waxes of the previous layer. So one of the benefits of working on a pair of shoes or multiple pairs of shoes is that you can kind of set it up in an assembly line and allow each pair a little bit of time to dry before you come back and revisit it. Some people like to apply their shoe polish, or especially their wax polishes, with their fingers. I prefer a chamois, but 6 of one, half dozen of another. Whenever it comes to using a wax polish, though, I always switch to a finer or higher grade chamois, like our Wellington high shine chamois. This is made from a real high quality cotton shirting. It has a tighter weave. It's more efficient with the shoe polish. It picks up less and allows you to get thinner applications as you're applying the wax polish, which again is very important for generating that beautiful high shine. The other thing is it's not going to lint and it won't scratch the mirror finish, or at least is a lot better at not scratching the mirror finish as you develop that high shine. Okay, so I've got about 10 coats here. We're going to allow this, 3 to 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes to dry. Again, you want all those solvents to evaporate out of that polish for those hard waxes to set. And then what we're going to begin doing is buffing this to a high shine. I'm going to start with a little bit of water and just a small tap of the Pate Deluxe. And then again, you're going to start using, soft pressure. And then as that shine builds, you're going to slowly increase the amount of pressure. On a scale of 1 to 10, you'd start at about a 1 or a 2, and then slowly work your way up. It's nice to kind of transition between shoes as you're doing this to, again, just allow those waxes time to dry and to set, especially if you're using a little bit of the Pate Deluxe. You don't want to soften those waxes too much because it's a little bit self-defeating. The process of really buffing those hard waxes to a high shine is really a slow process. It can't be rushed, and I call it kind of chasing the mirage. You'll feel like you've stalled and aren't making much progress, and then it'll kind of all come together, at the end. If you remember, whenever I started working on these boots, they were in absolutely terrible condition. I mean, probably the worst condition of any pair of shoes I've ever owned. And the salt stains, the wrinkling, the scuffing, the discoloration, these shoes look terrible. But with some of the Saphir Cordovan cream polish and some good handwork, you can see that these have been totally restored and brought back to life and really look the best I've ever seen them. These Cordovan Carmina Balmora boots are ready to be worn again. If you enjoyed this video, give us the thumbs up and hit that red subscribe button so that you can learn whenever we publish new videos. And if you haven't visited KirbyAllison.com, please do. We've got the largest collection of luxury garment care, luxury shoe care accessories, as well as other beautiful accessories for the well-dressed, like this sovereign grade necktie. All of our ties are handmade for us in England out of 100% English silk, and you can see that we spent a lot of time working on the lining to ensure that all of our ties effortlessly and easily tie beautiful knots with great nipples. I'm Kirby Allison, and I love to help the well-dressed acquire and care for their wardrobes. Thanks for joining me.